in English. Today I'm here with Rebecca
Good
from
morning.
Ireland. My name is Iris, and this is one of the sessions that we're doing in English in the open space channel Espacio Abierto in Spanish. And it's a great chance for me, I think, for us to be able to present all the things that we're doing in this marvelous movement, the Beyond Inner movement that we're creating together, to be able to present this in English. And I was just thinking about all of this, the perception of separation that we've been carrying around. And for me, this has started with Eric, who has just actually sang a song for you, for us. Um, within our movement, everything starts. Well, the core is basically Alberto, right? He's
hmm
the one creating all the text, all the content. He's doing the conscious school, and from there we're always starting from Spanish, and the whole movement started in Spanish. And we've been trying to bring this to the English speaking world
The rest of the world.
in different ways, to the rest of the world in different ways. And for me, it was a big change when I started working with Eric, actually, and when we were talking with Eric um, about the possibility to do things in English, to do them directly in English. And I don't know when we first started talking about this, but now we're singing songs in English.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, he wrote that song,
he
so
wrote
he's
that song, yeah. And so, for me, one of the most important realizations in this whole movement was to see that now it's our turn. Now we need to take charge and just do it, because you can say, oh, it's all in Spanish, but now we're doing it in English
yeah.
because of that, because we're here and we need to do this.
And I think this is a wonderful opportunity to to transmit all this information that we've gathered during our time in the organization, but in particular this week, to be able to um, pass on some of that information to you so that you can take it inside and see how it sits with you and how it feels. Um, it's some wonderful learning that information that we've been provided with here, and we just want to share it with everybody. Um, just it's really about seeing how this information fits in with your thoughts and feelings about yourself. We're going to talk a little bit today about um, how we are in ourselves on the internal space and how that relates to others who we perceive to be on the outside.
Mm.
And this can relate to many areas in our lives and in the world.
Mm.
Um, so we're very happy to share um, the things that we're discovering with all of you.
Well, I was just wondering about Rebecca when you said that we're sharing information. Um, I don't know actually what it is that we're sharing.
Yeah.
We were just sitting here thinking, like we're talking, what are we going to talk about today? And it's like, well, what did we actually talk about in the last week in this open space channel? And it's difficult to grasp.
I was struggling to find the word to describe it. When I said information and the things we're learning, I'm like, wait, now it's not information. Maybe it's perceptions. Maybe it's ideas. Um, it, and maybe it's just reminding us and not actually teaching us. It's not it's workshops that we're engaging in. It's not necessarily that it's new information. It's working on the information that we have inside or that we've been working on or with through our lives. and remembering um, to focus on who we really are and how we relate to others. I mean, once you take a look at yourself about to see um, what we're about, who we are, um, the only way then to relate that is with the other. But is that then coming back to this separation of internal and external that we we may be able to delve into a little bit more?
Yeah, of course, totally. Maybe before we go there, I feel like we could go a little bit more into this idea of the importance of language. How important is language? How important is the other words? Because this is something that I've been wondering a lot about lately. Because in the end, it is true that we're using the words and that we're transmitting with the words, but what we are transmitting in a way goes much beyond the words. It's more the energy. This energy of transformation that we want to share with the world, which is why we're here. And we've talked about that yesterday, and we had a meeting with the translators, because as you might be aware, we're the all this time, like for almost 2 months now, we've been doing these emissions in Spanish most of the time, and translating it to almost 5 different languages. And right now I'm being reminded that I wasn't taking care to speak slowly so the translator can actually follow what we're saying. And so right now we are translating in 3 or 4 different languages. And yesterday in this meeting with the translators, we were talking about the importance to have somebody as a translator who doesn't just translate the words and who does not just say what's being said without feeling the energy, without transmitting the energy. Because if that's what we're doing, then it almost doesn't make any sense what we're saying.
No, it's just repeating words, which are, very, it is very different to just repeat words during translation than to feel the words and transmit the message that is coming behind the words. It was very interesting for me to give the feedback during that meeting, because most of the time I'm listening to the translators in all these workshops and meetings and broadcasts that are in Spanish. So it was very interesting for me to really think, okay, what is it that I'm receiving when I'm listening to the translation, and how can I give the feedback to support those translators to really feel that they're transmitting the message. And it was very enlightening to see, oh, actually, it's not about the language. It's not, it's about feeling, even through the earphones, the presence of the person that's transmitting. It's something I've been thinking about a lot this week, because I'm here in Spain in an environment where the majority of people are speaking Spanish, and it really gets you. I started thinking, why do we have all these different languages? Why can't we all just speak one language? Which obviously is something that goes back in history to, when people didn't move around the world so much and they created their own languages. But this whole idea of identity and countries with borders and languages, you know, I really hope that at some point in the future there's not going to be any countries or borders or languages separating us or giving us this idea that we're separated.
Exactly. I was just thinking the same thing. It's this perception of separation that we're manifesting and maintaining
Yeah.
in the moment that we're sticking to our different languages.
Yeah.
I was wondering how it all came together that right now we're making this step. We are starting to transmit directly in English. We are developing conscious school in English. Tonight there's going to be for the first time in the evening session of the open space, there's going to be a session, and later on I might invite Fernanda to go and come and talk a little bit about what we can well, I want to say what we can expect, but I mean in the end we never know.
Till
We
it
never know
happens.
what happens.
we could get an idea of what might happen.
What the idea is that they have, what could eventually maybe happen. um and for me, all of this comes together through all the topics we've been sharing throughout the week, throughout the last month. And one of the things we've talked about are these well, we always talk about it, I feel, the mother script, the script that the core script um, that defines who we believe to be. Like that's the core of all our conditioning. And these three cores are the ones that give rise to the three main limiting beliefs that are written in our unconscious. One is I don't exist, I cannot, and I am not worthy. And so I feel like we're looking into these beliefs, we're looking into how they're limiting us, and we are now starting to make that step from to eventually transcend these beliefs. From if I don't exist, how would I be the one transmitting the message? And if I'm not worthy, why would anyone listen to me? You know, like all these beliefs that in the end keep us where we are.
Yeah.
And sorry to
No, you're okay. Keep going.
break you here,
Mhm.
but for anyone who's listening right now at home, if you feel like if you haven't done it in the session that we've done together, maybe take a moment to feel which of the three cores is the one that's limiting you most. Is it the one that tells you I don't exist? Is it the one that tells you I cannot? Or is it the one that tells you I'm not worthy? And if you feel like you can share with us in the chat, and we'd be happy to have an interchange with you at home.
I just want to explain a little bit that I mean, you can feel all three of those scripts, and maybe most of us do, but generally there's one that jumps out to say, oh, I can relate to that. Personally, I kept changing my mind between the three over a few days as I was feeling different things coming up. I was going, oh yeah, you know, I don't feel worthy of anything, and then it would skip to, well, you know, I can't do anything, and then I finally really related to the one that said that I don't exist. If any of you saw my speech last week, that was basically my topic. And just to explain that those three scripts, like when we're talking about I don't exist, it's about love. It's about feeling important. That you, whether you feel important in the world or to the other people in the world, and whether you feel worthy even of loving yourself. The value is, if you're not feeling valued or worthy, it's about not having authority within. Um,
Could you go a bit deeper there with this whole thing about the authority? How does the valuing relate to the authority?
for me, it's about, if you don't feel worthy of sort of receiving maybe respect or other people listening to you, when you're making some sort of statement in about yourself, or to, I'm sorry, I'm just searching for a word. When you're making some sort of statement and making a decision, and expressing that decision with authority, it's to do with feeling worthy and able to make that decision with authority, and to take responsibility. So maybe it's related to not feeling worthy of authority, and to have an opinion even, and take responsibility for that. Yeah, it goes you can keep going deeper and deeper and deeper into it. So
Yeah.
It's difficult to start talking about it when you're going, oh, I feel it.
Yeah. To me, that comes back to what we've talked about earlier this week as well, about the conscious parenting, and how the necessity of being clear in the way we say yes and no, how saying yes and no in a clear way defines how the child is able to position himself or herself in the world. We talked about. I'm not sure if you've seen the program with Liana, with the little daughter, like the little girl that lives here with us in the Comuna. She's 4 years old. If you haven't seen it yet, you should have a look at it. We made a session with her, Alberto and her, and um, what we're seeing in her is that she has difficulties accepting a no, and we talked about how that happens, and how this could eventually affect her, or however already it does affect her in her life. And when we talked about that, I realized that in the end, if we don't have somebody telling us with authority no when we're a child, if we say no, but then maybe normally when I want something, and I'm being told no, the next moment it turns into a yes because it's not a clear no. I actually don't comprehend what the word no means. To me, that was like a very, like a key moment to realize that I don't I have not integrated the meaning of the word no, because I wasn't treated with authority as a child. So then if I don't know what the word no means, because it's always a maybe or later or something like this, if I don't know what no means, I don't know what yes means.
Yeah.
And then whatever I decide can never be certain, because saying yes doesn't mean anything. Saying no doesn't mean anything either. To me, that was a key moment to realize how important it is to learn what that means, and in the end, how that is clearly related to authority, and in a way also with love.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's funny that we related that thing kind of to separate areas,
Mm-hmm.
because for me, I was brought up with a lot of authority.
Mm-hmm.
And I understood no, and I don't. It's almost difficult for me to understand how somebody could not comprehend a
Uh-huh.
no,
Yeah. Yeah.
because I know what no is, and then of course I pass that down as a mother to my children. I was always very clear that if I didn't know if the answer to something was going to be yes or no, if they asked me, I'd think about it, because I would make sure that if it was no, there was no way that was going to change, and they knew that.
Mm.
And same with if I said yes, even if it created problems later, somehow I knew it was very important to maintain that yes, that
Mm-hmm.
to allow them to do something that I'd already said yes to, that I couldn't change their mind. Or sorry, I couldn't change my mind and confuse them. And really, I didn't go deeper into it as I was being a mother. It just kind of came from my script. And I thought, yeah, it's going to give them security to know that if it's no, it's no. If it's yes, it's yes. So when I looked at that, the worthiness and the authority, I saw it differently to you, which we all can. It's about
Mm.
what does worthiness mean to us, and what does authority mean to us? How does that relate to us in our lives? But yes, it's a topic we could talk about for hours.
Mm.
Each one of these areas is a topic that we have talked about for hours and could talk for many more.
Yeah. Brings me back to a statement that that Alberto made a few times. He talked about how we need love, like how love and authority are the two wings that allow us to fly, and how our relationship to authority and our relationship to love define who we are in the end.
Absolutely. Yeah. So the third script that Iris mentioned was um, possibilities. That the message that we're living by is I can't, not feeling able to to do whatever it is in life that you might like to do. That, oh, I'd love to go for this job. I'd love to enter a relationship with somebody, but I can't. You know, I'd love to do something new. I'd love to go to college and learn something new. And underlying, you have this feeling of, but I can't. I'm not able to do that. And many of us live our lives from that lack of possibility. So it'd be wonderful to hear from you on the chat of the broadcast to see if any of these underlying scripts resonate with you. And we could discuss it further and go into that a little bit more.
Yeah, this yesterday we had another very interesting evening where we talked about the necessity to transcend this I cannot, and um, we were talking about different possibilities to do that, and in the end, now that I'm saying it, I almost don't want to say it because it sounds like a method. No, it's like this is how you transcend the I cannot. So yeah, it's not like that. But basically, we can observe the script in all areas of our lives, and in whenever we perceive a limit, um, one possibility to deal with that limit is to go against the script, which would be by, like, if you have a belief of I cannot do this, and you can see how this cannot is blocking you, um, how to try to do something like the opposite, to go against that script, And yeah, but that's, it can be complicated depending on where you are, what you are, but it's, and then it's all about observing it and seeing how is it impacting you in your daily life.
And somehow the going against the script, in order to do that, first you need to accept this, this, the limitation. You know, that if you're if you're in denial of that limitation, you're not going, you know, that's how it has a hold of you almost. But if you can realize that you have a limitation in your beliefs and observe it, accept it, then you can almost just let it go, that naturally you're going to go against that limitation and transcend it.
Yeah.
That the act of going opposite to it is actually coming from the same energy of the limitation.
Exactly.
It's more about accepting it. Okay, so you know, I believe that I can't do this.
And
I'll
maybe I'm
accept that.
never going to be able to.
Yeah. And then somehow trusting in life brings the opportunity to transcend that limitation and move forward. But as long as you're in denial of that limitation, it kind of has a hold of you. So it's interesting to, you know, and this same sort of series of events can happen in many areas, like we were talking about surrendering to life, for example. And we have this idea that, talking about separation of languages and countries and people, that when it comes down to two individuals, we have this idea that you are you and I'm me, and you're on the outside of me. And we're these two identities that are interacting with each other. But at some point we realize that there is no you and me. We're all one. We're all interacting together. We all have the same energy, let's say, the same feeling as each other. And this kind of is like a reconciliation of understanding that there's no you, there's no me, there's no other people and my people and other families and my family. We're all interacting together. And this reconciliation brings a complete acceptance of ourselves and accepting the world as it is. So once we can reconcile that and accept the world as it is, accept ourselves as we are, then we can just relax and surrender. And there's no need to live in this with this idea of the external and the internal. I don't really know how I got to that point, but it just sort of, you know, started all making sense together about this surrendering and acceptance of our limitations is the same thing as acceptance of others and the external internal world that we live in, and that there is no such thing as external and internal.
Yeah, for me, acceptance is a key word as well, because I've observed in my own process how I've been working a lot with self-demand in a way that like knowing from the mind, like understanding that there is no separation, understanding that we are all the same, understanding that everything is from love, but then not having comprehended it. So there was a part of me that didn't know, that didn't feel that this was actually true. And then coming with the self-demand of believing, but yeah, but I already understood. So why do I still feel like this? Why do I still, this like, in Spanish would be todavía. And it's always in my head, like I'm still in this point. And from that place of rejecting my own moment, the moment where I am, I was basically stuck there.
Yeah.
For me, that is very important for everyone also who's watching to observe, where are you? Where are you really in your process? Are you really in the place where you are, where you believe to be? And is it something, is it a place that you've reached through understanding from the mind? Or is there something that you have actually comprehended? And it's a very different place that you're locating yourself, depending on whether you've made your process from the mind, or whether you actually have integrated these things.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, that's the topic of the spiritual bypass. I talk a lot about this because I feel like I'm always going first from the mind and thinking, oh yes, I already understood, and then later realizing, oh really, I haven't understood anything. I'm actually still at the same place. And that's another expression of the self demand, of course, like seeing
Yeah.
myself, seeing myself worse than I actually am. But for me, it's really important to see yourself where you really are, and accepting that maybe you haven't comprehended something, and it's okay. And from that acceptance, you actually open the door for the comprehension.
Yeah.
But you cannot accept it with the aim to open the door, because
No.
that's the intention, and then you again,
It's
stuck
the
yourself.
reconciliation that allows you to surrender in order to open the door for the new way of life to occur. I mean, if we understand it from the mind, we can understand it at that moment. But the mind only wants to keep things the way that it always was. The mind is what's running from the scripts. And when we take it inside to our, I don't know, body, soul, when we're comprehending something, it's taking it away from the mind. I think that's what allows us to open up and surrender and trust that how I'm going to move forward in my life is going to be with this new comprehension, rather than taking the understanding to your mind and forcing yourself to, oh, I must remember I learned this new thing, this new way of living. But you're still living from your mind rather than from your heart. And your heart or love is who we are. And if we could all live from that space, the world would be a very different place.
Yeah, that's very true.
It's the mind that separates us. As Alberta had talked about, I don't know, was it earlier this week or last week, about when a baby is born, they don't understand this separation of you and me. They still feel a part of their mother and completely connected as one. And it's not until we tell them that they're separate that they actually feel this separation. And in fact, I would have had a background in child development and child psychology, and it's actually about 8 to 10 months before the child actually feels that separation.
Oh.
It's almost like we keep on telling them, you're separate to me, you're separate, you're separate. And eventually, when they're 8 to 10 months, they go, wait now, I'm separate from you. So I'm going to have to, that's when they start to not want to go to other adults because they're feeling the separation from their mother. But up until that point, they feel fine with anybody because they still feel connected
Oh, wow.
as one. But at about 8 months old, 8 to 10 months, they start to feel insecure about being apart from their mother or with another adult, or being left with, childminders or in daycare, because that's the separation they feel gives them insecurity, gives them the feeling of insecurity.
Wow.
So it's like, and it's not until they're about 12 months old that they look in the mirror and recognize that it's them. That up to then, it's still this feeling of we're all one. That when they look in the mirror, it's a baby, or it's a human, or it's something. But it's like between that sort of 10 to 12 months old when the real feeling of separation kicks in.
Wow.
Then they look in the mirror and say, oh, it's me. And this is when we start to build this idea of identity, this false idea of identity, But it's like it takes the whole first year for us to convince a baby that it's separate.
It's funny how you're saying convince, but in the end we're transmitting it.
Yeah. But it's like we work on it, in child development. We work on this identity. Oh, aren't you a lovely little boy? And look at, and if somebody took a little girl and said, aren't you a lovely little boy? Everybody else would go, are you crazy? We need to give this child identity, and in child psychology, this is what we're sort of instructed to do, is create an identity for these babies and these children. In preschool, it's like, stand up if you're a boy, stand up if you like yellow is your favorite color, and this is all like putting the script on them, putting the identity on them. So obviously, like, I've worked in childcare for 30 years, and now I'm kind of like, what was I doing? How can I do it differently now that I understand? Is it possible to care for children without imprinting an identity on them?
What is your answer?
I haven't really come to a conclusion. I did have the experience of some parents whose children we took care of, and they wouldn't allow us to put identity on the children, let's say. When I say didn't allow, I was welcoming them with open arms, that this was a new idea, and I was happy. But it was very interesting to see how all the staff dealt with it, because they didn't know whether the child they didn't want their child to be identified as a boy or a girl. So it was very difficult with language to refer to this child, because we were asked not to use he or she.
Oh, wow.
So do you say it? It was really confronting for all of the staff to try to figure out
how to speak
to the child, about the child. And it brought up many questions about identity. And the majority of my staff were saying it was wrong. This is wrong to do this to this child. How can they, and they were both identifying, like, there was a little bit, I feel they didn't have it quite all lined up, because they both identified as dads. And in my mind, I was like, well, why are you both dad? Why aren't you just parents? I'm a parent, so, and they were just working through their ideas of how to raise their child. But it was very, very interesting.
I could see that. Yeah, we have a comment from Fernando.
Yeah, hello, good morning.
Hello.
Yeah, I would like to share something that I was thinking now while you were talking about the child and favorite color and these things in psychology. Um, Let me organize my ideas. No, I was just feeling actually that when we, let's say, like adults, we are in contact with children, we forget that we were there once.
Yeah.
Totally. That's interesting. That's the first thing that I would like to share. And that we are trying, I was trying in that moment to teach them which one is their favorite color. Like you, I need to have one favorite color with which I'm connected. You know, and represents me. The blue, the pink, the beginning, or maybe okay, not turquoise. No, that's my favorite color, turquoise, or I don't know, the specific weird color, blah blah blah. The thing is identity is the second thing. So I choose a favorite color, a favorite food, a favorite sport to identify myself. Um, and then it came to me this there's like a tale or a story saying that when when you tell when you're with someone or with yourself and you look at a bird on the tree and someone tells you that that's a bird, if you believe that that's a bird, you stop observing the bird and you won't see the bird anymore from that moment on. And for me, everything is connected what I'm saying, because then when you were talking about the color, now I'm talking about the color, is like, do I have a one favorite color? So I stop connecting myself with everything, with every color, with everything, every moment. So when I see the bird, I stop being the bird. I disconnect. I am like this separation. Like this is me and this is you. This is me. This is the bird. So I am observing the bird instead of being everything really. And yesterday, this is the last part. Yesterday, when we were talking about giving ourselves in, which in Spanish is la entrega, um, it's not the same as surrendering. I'm just differentiating this. It's like I give up, like the character gives up. So I let something in. I let things to come inside of me. So then after that, I can give myself in. I can, and for me, everything is going to that point. Like when the I disappears. When the you disappears, again I come to this: I am everything. I'm connected to everything. It's not I'm connected. It's there's connection again. Back to no birds, no color, no one favorite color, but you are everything. So thank you very much. I just wanted to share these comprehensions that I was having.
Thank you, Fernando. Yeah, the necessity to define things. I wonder, I mean, it's something we're being taught, but it is the thing, it is what separates us. My
Yeah.
necessity to recognize you as you separates me from you. This necessity to see, oh, this is a man, this is a woman, this is a child, to be able to predefine my behavior based on my conclusion about you.
Yeah.
This is something that for me was really important the last couple of days and weeks. How after we've talked last week about the way we define men and women, I started to see how I used to have, and sometimes I'm still using it unconsciously, how I used to have a filter and putting it in front of everything I saw, like how I was saying, oh yeah, this is a man, so I know what this person is, I know what this person is going to do, or I have a certain conclusion that I wasn't aware that I had. Like I saw things that I never expected to have as a belief, but like this necessity to put that filter in order to be able to already know how I'm going to act, instead of just being and just receiving whatever is, and by that just being open to, well, this is a man, maybe, well, it's, he has male genitals, but that's all that I know. I don't know anything else. And freeing myself from the conclusion that I had, what man means, I feel like it's now starting to allow me to go in a different connection with a man, with men in general, and the same for women, obviously.
Yeah.
It's like letting go of the predefinition, the identification, the identity, letting go of the need to define. And that's true for everything. The definition of the couch, the definition of you.
Yes.
Who's Rebecca?
Yeah.
Oh, Rebecca, she's from Ireland. Oh. Okay.
Oh, so she's a certain way.
She's like this.
Yeah.
And we do it so, we do it unconsciously. Like even
like
just
in milliseconds, your brain, your mind comes up with conclusions based on one or two pieces of information.
Yeah. And I'm seeing more and more how like this we're creating our reality. Like small things. For example, in the beginning you said, oh, we have the British flag. Irish people are not going to like this. Uh-huh. Really? Maybe. But maybe they're gonna love it, But by thinking exactly, but
no.
But by thinking this, you are creating it. The Irish people are not going to like it. And I had this and I had this experience this morning with I was having breakfast with a friend, Elisa. And yesterday night we were agreeing, let's meet at 8:30. And her boyfriend was next to her saying, Elisa? At 8:30? Really? Are you sure? And in that moment, I said to him, yeah, but by not allowing her, like by thinking she's not going to be able, you're already putting her in that space. And then I felt so free of perception, And then this morning I was in the shower thinking, oh, I'm going to put this and this in my hair and wait a bit longer because Elisa's not going to be there. It's like, what? And we've created it, we're creating it by making assumptions based on the past. Because maybe last time Elisa wasn't there, this time she's not going to be able to. And this way, unconsciously, we keep the same loop by this need to know what's going to happen based on the past.
Yeah. Which so again, brings us back to this whole external and internal that we're keeping by coming up with these conclusions about other people. It's confirming that they're not me.
Yeah.
It's just the brain again, the mind confirming that I can come up with these conclusions about the other because they're not me. And I'm like this and they're like that. And it's reconfirming all the time this separation. That eventually we'll comprehend the idea that you are me. And there's nothing to conclude from that other than love and surrender and trust. this whole idea of trusting the other. It's only about trusting ourselves.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because there is no other.
Yeah.
So if I trust me, if I trust myself, then I can trust everything. Because I am everything, you know. And how can I define me when I'm everything? Consciously, if there's no you, then there's no I. There just is, and there's nothing to do but to surrender to life, trust that in each moment everything's perfect, same as it always has been.
There's something exactly along these lines that Alberta said yesterday about how I disappear. Oh yeah. So we talked about that when I live outside. So when I always look for the reason for something that happens in the outside, it is because I'm seeing the other. I perceive that the other is different. I'm in the perceived separation. And if as long as the other exists, for me, I am in the other, and then I don't exist. Because I am the other.
Yeah. So the idea of I doesn't exist. It's not the same thing as the no existing from the script of the mother. That's about that's about whether I deserve love or am love, and all of that. But this is about the identity not existing.
Yeah, this is what we talked yesterday, how we need to redefine the word I. This is what we said, no? Like we need to redefine the definition of the I. Because in the end, it's true, like I don't exist, but then which I is it actually that I'm talking about? We do have a comment, or many.
Yes, a comment from Ciro from Madrid.
Oh, hello, Ciro.
Yes. The word acceptance, it's resonating with me in many ways, but because I was thinking about what is really acceptance in the core of the word. What it truly means inside when we accept something. Like I was thinking about a philosopher called Alan Watts talk about acceptance. He says that acceptance is like in the psychology of the mind, when you really and truly accept yourself, it's like doing something like Buddha in psychological terms. When you accept yourself, you're not only accepting yourself, you are accepting everything. There is no way to accept yourself without accepting everything. Because I am saying this because I have the belief that you can accept yourself, but don't give up. Don't give up about others. But
so really, then you're not accepting yourself.
Yeah, that was a lie in my mind, or that I can accept others without accepting myself.
Yeah.
There is no possibility.
Yeah, it's either accept and surrender
Yeah.
or live in the lie.
Yeah. Totally.
That's the two options.
Yeah. Totally. Yeah.
There's no in between.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Cyril. Amazing. And I'm thinking about how we can transfer this idea of no separation, and then I'm trying to integrate what we talked about last night with Alberto about I have no interest in you.
Mm-hmm.
You don't interest me. Because it sounds like we're talking about separating each other, that I have no interest in you. But if we can go into this a little bit deeper, the interest really means I'm not interested in taking something from you. I'm not interested in what you can give me. What interests me is what is that I can surrender myself to you in the knowledge that there's no separation between us.
Yeah.
So it all ties in with what we're talking about. Alberto was saying that, a lot of people felt maybe confronted or offended because he would say to them, you don't interest me, which sounds like a put down. It sounds like I'm better than you. You don't interest me.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah.
he revealed really about saying it in order to open up thoughts about what that could mean.
For me, it's even more natural to comprehend it when we start from the Spanish again, because that's how he expresses everything. But he says, "Tú no me interesas," and you can split that sentence and saying, "Tú no me interesas," which means you not me interests, something like this.
You don't give me interests, almost.
It's like so it's like your I, not, but I'm in but there's a connection, but it makes more sense in Spanish. But for me, that was the way to comprehend it, like to comprehend that it's about the fact that your conditioning is not interesting for me. Like, I'm not interested in relating to you based on your beliefs about yourself. I'm interested in relating to you for who you really are. And in that moment, I don't want to see that part of you that's conditioned. I don't, not want to see, but I want to see beyond that limitation that you have. I want to see beyond your limiting belief. And in that interaction, I might feel the need or the wish to sometimes confront you in a way to support you to connect to that inner beauty that sometimes you don't see. And that's the for me, that's the way I interpret when he says that. He says that me interesas. You don't, I'm not interested in that part of you that's limiting or that believes to be limited. And for me, that was very important yesterday to see that in the end it doesn't mean. And we had an interpretation yesterday because Christian, one of the technicians here, he said something which in Spanish would be no me importas, which is I don't care. And that is not what he's saying.
That's not what he said.
But it's interesting that some of us perceive it from that place, because if I say to you, I'm not interested in you, you could perceive it from that limitation, from that lack of love, where where you want to hear me say I don't give a shit about you,
Yeah.
but it's not what I'm actually saying.
Yeah.
Which brings us to yet another layer of things we could talk about,
Yeah.
which is communication
Mm-hmm.
in general. What do I say? From which place do I say it?
And how
And
do I hear
how
it?
do you hear it? Because that could be completely different.
Yeah.
But I feel Fernando wanted to give another contribution.
Yeah, I would like to continue with what you're saying actually, about the phrase, you don't interest me. That's how you say in English, you don't interest me. And as you were saying, Alberto was playing a game with words in Spanish to create this confusion. And actually, we asked him yesterday, why is he using this I or this you when we are trying to comprehend that there's no I and you? And because in this phrase, in every language, I think you can misunderstand. I mean, I can misunderstand. You can misunderstand if we are identified with this separation. So it's you pointing outside, you don't, as you said, you not interest me, or I am not interested in you. Like creating this, again, separation, identification, and we can, of course, understand that phrase in that sense. But as you said, then he was, it's not explaining, but transmitting the energy of that phrase, saying that not about your character, not about your identity. That's not what I am interested in. And it's also that it's not about I, like an actor, like the one who's doing the action. Again, in this exterior and interior, it's again not about that. I want to go to one point to take us there. It's and there is an I, Alberto said, like a core more than an I, from where everything comes and moves. Because if you remember, in other classes we were also talking about this potentiality or potential not to be like in the air. We need structure from where this potentiality or potential can manifest. So what was bringing me now is like, yeah, I'm not gonna use you, because this is another topic we're talking yesterday. I'm not gonna use you. That's why I'm not interested in you. But I know that from another place inside of me, through you, this can be manifested. And it again comes to me, the sensations, the emotions. It's not about emotions, it's not about sensations, but I don't have other words now to, and everything disappears. But again, there is a core, there is like a center from where everything can manifest. So that phrase is really, really deep. And then the last part that I wanted to share now is about communication. When you were talking now about communication, again, the same thing. I can misunderstand that I am talking and you are listening. Again, with a barrier here, like very well identify who's the speaker, who's the listener. But when you said it now, I listened. I felt like, wow, actually communication is our tool to connect everything. Now, while someone is communicating something, is connecting everything. Technicians here, everything behind the camera, us. And this was like, wow. So it's not about I, it's not about you. Communication is about
the communication.
Connection. So thank you very much.
Connection. Yeah.
Thank you, Fernando.
And I'm just was looking at my notes, and one sentence that I wrote down, which really touched me, was in this "you don't interest me," is that I want to discover what or who is behind the you, and that opens up the pathway to connect with love. So for me, that was the underlying message that I received from that discussion. And as Fernando said, not about I'm interested in using you. It's to share that communication and the love from behind the characters, behind the conditioning. So I think for me that was, it all ties in together. You know, this whole idea of lack of separation, that lack of external and internal, that it's all just about connections and communicating on this vibration of love. Sounds very hippie, actually. Now that I say it all.
The vibration of love.
Yeah. Let's go back to the 60s and just vibrate with love.
I would like to go back to one point that Fernando made about how we need the limitation. I'm not sure if you said we need the limitation, but that's how I heard it. What came to me yesterday, and it's coming back to me since a while, how when we go to this, well, sometimes I am in this place where it's complicated for me to integrate the reality of knowing that we're connected, knowing that we're one, and bringing it down to earth, to this human life where I am in a way separate, because it's the, you have a different body than me, there's something there, and how we need the separation to be able to realize that there's unity, and how we need the limitation to be able to access the potential. And to me, that was this like very deep moment of comprehension where I realized that how this leads me to knowing that everything is perfect. Because if I don't feel separated, I'm not going to be able to transcend the separation, and I'm not going to be able to access unity. And if I don't feel a limitation, if I don't feel the I cannot, I have no way to access the I can. To me, that was really, really interesting yesterday. Like to really feel that the necessity of the limitation in a way, and how it can be the point from which I can actually jump.
That's the point where recognizing it brings you that reconciliation, accepting it, reconciling it, and then you can transcend it, surrender to it in order to transcend. Absolutely, everything's perfect. It's perfect. There's nothing to do.
Now, just a while ago, there was Liana peeking in the door, and she was looking. ¿Qué haces? It's like, what are you doing here? It's like looking for a place to have fun, no? And yesterday she said something really interesting while we were talking with her, and she was explaining how she was understanding everything that's happening with her parents. They're now separated, and they're now like have a different partner, and how she comprehends that even though her father is not with her mother anymore, he still is her father. Like that was like really important to understand the different things. But another thing that she said which I really thought was like interesting. That I was talking with her and her mother was explaining to her how important it is that when she speaks with somebody, that Liana waits until she will have time to speak with her. Also saying like at the same time, if I speak to you, I want that if we are speaking, and so then nobody else interrupts. And then Liana said something like, yeah, it's true, because there's when we're listening, there can only be two people. And she didn't explain it more. But for me that was like, yes. You know, when we're really listening, when we're really connecting, it's always two. Like there's this connection is like, if I really surrender to you in this moment, I'm with you.
Mhm.
And I'm not with anyone else. And so when we're listening, there can only be two. Like for me, sometimes when like Liana just says things like, yes, you
Yeah.
know, she knows. She knows.
And this is true even if you're talking to a group of people. It's only one to
One to
the
one.
other individually that person is receiving it. You know, the listener is connecting directly to the speaker. So it's actually many communications occurring one to one, whether there's more people in the conversation or not. You're connecting one to one with each other. Fernando's flying away now with these ideas. Would you like to say something, Fernando?
It's possible with the technician, cameraman. Yeah. Okay.
We hear you.
Thank you for the topic. Yeah, because you know what I felt now is that somehow it happens that when I am with one, so we need to be careful with that. So actually, that you, yeah. Now while you Iris, while you were talking, and according to what we talked yesterday about this giving myself in, it came to me that whoa. That was like wow. I said when I was flying, coming here, it's like I don't know the answer. I'm just sharing. If I am with one person talking, yeah, I feel I can like have the chance to go deeper, quicker, and very very deep. But then again, and thank you for saying when you are with an audience, what happened there? Can you give yourself in? And yesterday, I felt we can. When Alberto finished and he closed his eyes, you know, when we were all breathing like. So it's not about being in front of one, but with yourself, which is not you, is everything again. And it's like, and I felt that connection, that communication, that connection, that net. And I can give myself incompletely from that perspective. But be careful because I'm sharing from my mind, from what I felt. It's something that is developing at this moment. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Fernando. For me, it would be like there's me and the other. So it's only ever just two. And the other can be many. But it's, I don't know. Yeah.
But there is no other. So you're just talking to yourself, really.
Yeah. Please, Fernando.
Okay. Yeah, that's that's why I said be careful when I said I'm in front of one. Even if that one is physically one person or a group of people, we can again fall into the my eye can fall into the trap of me and you, even if it's a group or it's one or it's two. Because what I comprehended yesterday is that I'm giving myself into myself. It's not anyone else, really. And it's not that I don't care about you, it's with you. Or it's very complex to translate.
You're giving yourself into yourself and communicating with yourself.
But that's why I'm doing this
through the other
with my hand, because it's, and we were talking about orgasm yesterday. Alberto said it, with Kundalini and da 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 da, and it's like that. It's I'm not feeling you actually. The only thing that I can perceive and experience, more than perceive, experience, is here and now. This is my core, the core. So that was really beautiful. Yeah, it's not you, it's not me, it's not. Okay, that's Thank you.
So it's almost more like me experiencing myself through you, like me listening to myself talking to you, me observing my thoughts about you, about the situation, about Fernando, about what's going on. And that, for me, eliminates the idea of separation, because you become a part of me in that observation space.
Yeah. Which brings us to the whole using the other. That it's not even possible that we can use other people if we comprehend that there is no other people. That we're all sharing the space together. Without this separation of the external and the internal. That when people are using each other, it's the characters and what they can get to dominate the other person, to suppress the other person in order to overpower them and to get something, which is coming from a place of, well, ego, trying to, identify with the mind about how I am compared to you, which is going back to the whole separation thing.
So we kind of close the circle.
Yeah. I'd like to share a story that Alberto shared with us yesterday. And it covers a lot of the topics that we've covered today, because we were all, those of us on the transmission last night, were all touched by the comprehension of this story. And it was in Spanish, and I was hearing it through translation, and it was beautiful. Actually, the translator was overcome with emotion during the story and had to hand over the translation to somebody else. And I shared afterwards that actually that was a beautiful experience to hear through the translation, because I felt the emotions that she was feeling. And this is all coming back to that. Transmitting the message and the presence that you feel. So the story is one of the transcripts by Osho, and in Spanish the name of the story is The Tree of Love, which I prefer to the translation in English, which is Affection of a Tree. I think the English translation lost the point, to be honest with you, whoever translated it. So,
at least the title.
Oh, just the title, yeah. The story is exactly the same. So I would like to continue calling it The Tree of Love. The story goes, I have heard that there was once an ancient and majestic tree with branches spreading out towards the sky. When it was in a flowering mood, butterflies of all shapes, colors, and sizes danced around it. When it grew blossoms and bore fruit, birds from far lands came and sang in it. The branches, like outstretched hands, blessed all who came and sat in their shade. A small boy used to come and play under it, and the big tree developed an affection for the small boy. Love between big and small is possible if the big is not aware that it is big. The tree did not know it was big. Only man has that kind of knowledge. The big always has the ego as its prime concern. But for love, nobody is big or small. Love embraces whomsoever comes near. So the tree developed a love for this small boy who used to come to play near it. Its branches were high, but it bent and bowed them down so that he might pluck its flowers and pick its fruit. Love is ever ready to bow. The ego is never ready to bend. If you approach the ego, its branches will stretch upwards even more. It will stiffen so that you cannot reach it. The playful child came, and the tree bowed down its branches. The tree was very pleased when the child plucked some flowers. Its entire being was filled with the joy of love. Love is always happy when it can give something. The ego is always happy when it can take. The boy grew. Sometimes he slept on the tree's lap. Sometimes he ate its fruit. And sometimes he wore a crown of the tree's flowers and acted like a jungle king. One becomes like a king when the flowers of love are there. But one becomes poor and miserable when the thorns of the ego are present. To see the boy wearing a crown of flowers and dancing about filled the tree with joy. It nodded in love. It sang in the breeze. The boy grew even more. He began to climb the tree to swing in its branches. The tree felt very happy when the boy rested on its branches. Love is happy when it gives comfort to someone. The ego is only happy when it gives discomfort. With the passage of time, the burden of other duties came to the boy. Ambition grew. He had exams to pass. He had friends to chat with and to wander about with. So he did not come often. But the tree waited anxiously for him to come. It called from its soul, "Come, come, I am waiting for you." Love waits day and night. And the tree waited. The tree felt sad when the boy did not come. Love is sad when it cannot share. Love is sad when it cannot give. Love is grateful when it can share. When it can surrender totally, love is the happiest. As he grew, the boy came less and less to the tree. The man who becomes big, whose ambitions grow, finds less and less time for love. The boy was now engrossed in worldly affairs. One day, while he was passing by, the tree said to him, "I wait for you, but you do not come. I expect you daily." The boy said, "What do you have? Why should I come to you? Have you any money? I am looking for money." The ego is always motivated, only if there is some purpose to be served with the ego. But love is motiveless. Love is its own reward. The startled tree said, "You will come only if I give something?" That which withholds is not love. The ego amasses, but love gives unconditionally. "We don't have that sickness, and we are joyful," the tree said. "Flowers bloom on us, many fruits grow on us. We give soothing shade, we dance in the breeze and sing songs. Innocent birds hop on our branches and chirp, even though we don't have any money. The day we get involved with money, we will have to go to the temples like you weak men do, to learn how to obtain peace, to learn how to find love. No, we do not have any need for money." The boy said, "Then why should I come to you? I will go where there's money. I need money." The ego asks for money because it needs power. The tree thought for a while and said, "Don't go anywhere else, my dear. Pick my fruit and sell it. You will get money that way." The boy brightened immediately. He climbed up and picked all the tree's fruit. Even the unripe ones were shaken down. The tree felt happy, even though some twigs and branches were broken, even though some of its leaves had fallen to the ground. Getting broken also makes love happy. But even after getting, the ego is not happy. The ego always desires more. The tree didn't notice that the boy hadn't even once looked back to thank him. It had had its thanks when the boy accepted the offer to pick and sell its fruit. The boy did not come back for a long time. Now he had money, and he was busy making more money from that money. He had forgotten all about the tree. Years passed. The tree was sad. It yearned for the boy's return, like a mother whose breasts are filled with milk but whose son is lost. Her whole being craves for her son. She searches madly for her son so he can come to lighten her. Such was the inner cry of that tree. Its entire being was in agony. After many years, now an adult, the boy came to the tree. The tree said, "Come, my boy, come embrace me." The man said, "Stop that sentimentality. That was a childhood thing. I'm not a child anymore." The ego sees love as madness, as a childish fantasy. But the tree invited him. "Come, swing on my branches. Come dance. Come play with me." The man said, "Stop all this useless talk. I need to build a house. Can you give me a house?" The tree exclaimed, "A house? I am without a house. Only men live in houses. Nobody else lives in houses but a man. And do you notice his condition after his confinement among four walls? The bigger his buildings, the smaller man becomes. We do not stay in houses, but you can cut and take away my branches, and then you may be able to build a house. Without wasting any time, the man brought an axe and severed all the branches of the tree. Now the tree was just a bare trunk. But love cares not for such things, even if its limbs are severed for the loved one. Love is giving. Love is ever ready to give. The man didn't even bother to thank the tree. He built his house, and the days flew into years. The trunk waited and waited. It wanted to call for him, but it had neither branches nor leaves to give it strength. The wind blew by, but it couldn't even manage to give the wind a message. And still its soul resounded with one prayer only. Come, come, my dear, come. But nothing happened. Time passed and the man had now become old. Once he was passing by and he came and stood by the tree. The tree asked, "What else can I do for you? You have come after a very, very long time." The old man said, "What else can you do for me? I want to go to distant lands to earn more money. I need a boat to travel." Cheerfully, the tree said, "But that's no problem, my love. Cut my trunk and make a boat from it. I would be so happy if I could help you go to faraway lands to earn money. But please remember, I will always be awaiting your return." The man bought a saw, cut down the trunk, made a boat, and sailed away. Now the tree is a small stump, and it waits for its loved one to return. It waits, and it waits, and it waits. The man will never return. The ego only goes where there is something to gain, and now the tree has nothing, absolutely nothing to offer. The ego does not go where there is nothing to gain. The ego is an eternal beggar in a continuous state of demand, and love is charity. Love is a king, an emperor. Is there any greater king than love? I was resting near that stump one night, and it whispered to me, "That friend of mine has not come back yet. I'm very worried in case he might have drowned or in case he might be lost. He may be lost in one of those faraway countries. He might not even be alive anymore. How I wish for news of him. As I near the end of my life, I would be satisfied with some news of him at least. Then I could die happily." But he would not come even if I could call him. I have nothing left to give, and he only understands the language of taking.
Thank you, Rebecca.
So many lessons within
I,
that story.
I feel like I finally comprehend why we're translating entrega, like giving in, giving yourself, because that is exactly what it is. When we talk about this, the three phases of inner evolution, it's that. It's like opening, receiving, and giving yourself. Nothing else. Nothing more, and nothing less. Thank you, everyone, for listening, for being here. Thank you, Rebecca, for sharing.
Thank you.
I hope to see you later today at 7 with Fernando and Laura, talking about something that I don't know what it is, and we will see when we get there. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
See you next time.